I think for me, it's about winning when it counts. And I think that if I close the circle, I hope that people realize that when I needed to step up, I could. And I think that ultimately, that's the most important thing to build for. I've always wanted to be the best high jumper. I've always loved my event and my sport, and from being a very young child, I always just wanted to just play sport. And I think for me to complete that set, it gives me that validation that I really was on that journey and really have done it.
Gold medalist and World Athletics indoor champion representing New Zealand, Hamish Kerr.
Sorry, I forgot about you.
I've been working with the same physio, mental skills coach, nutritionist for a number of years now. Then obviously my coach has changed recently, but previous to being my coach was actually one of my best mates. So we used to live together for a couple of years. The team dynamic is tight, it's understanding, we move very quickly, but we all have a very good understanding of what we're trying to achieve and being able to kind of work through that. I always had a sense that I would be as good as the energy that I put into it. So through high school, I wouldn't say I was winning a lot. Through all my kind of teen years, I spent a lot of time coming second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it was. But I always knew that if I really wanted to take it seriously, I would do well. And I think that's kind of been where my journey's at, is that every year in my late teens and then early 20s, I just committed more and more to the sport, and the results came from that. So yeah, I think that was kind of my confidence was knowing that each time I tried a little bit harder, I got a little bit better.
Hamish Kerr's personal best is 2:31, undefeated this year.
2022 was really my first kind of experience of international competition. It was about kind of meeting my heroes. I go to Belgrade and spent some decent time with Gianmarco Tamberi and Wu and all these guys that I jump with so regularly now, but I'd never really met them before. And so I think I put them up on this pedestal as these guys that I really aspired to be like. And I think to come away and know that not only were these guys my heroes and people I really looked up to, but I was actually just as good as them. So 2022 Oregon, I came either 13th or 14th. I remember the last jumper in the last round of 227 was Tamberi, and I was sitting 12th, and I knew that if he cleared it, then he was making the final and I wasn't. And unfortunately with someone like Tamberi, that's never a good place to rely. And yeah, ultimately didn't make the final. And that was actually 2 weeks before Com Games. I think the elation of Com Games and what happened there kind of masked what was potentially a bit of a failure at Oregon. I kind of moved on to 2023 and just assumed that wouldn't happen again, going into Budapest. And unfortunately, it did. It did happen again, and ultimately didn't make that final. And I think that was a real kind of turning point for me as an athlete. I think that in those darkest of times, those lowest of lows, you have to look at what you've done and your process, and you have to really be kind of brutally honest around where you're going in the sport. And so that was really, really good for me. And I think, honestly, if I hadn't done that, I don't think 2024 would have been as successful as what happens. So yeah, thank you Budapest, but also I'm fully intending that that's not going to happen again. I got this real sense that I just wasn't that dangerous in competition. I could get up to 5th gear any day of the week. I was the dependable guy. I jumped 225 to 228 pretty much every day of the week. But when the gears needed to shift, when everyone could find that 6th gear and get into the mid 30s and really, really compete, I just couldn't do it. I think that mindset and that realization after Budapest changed a lot for me. It made me kind of realize that I needed to find my 6th gear and really find out, not what makes me a good high jumper every day of the week, but what makes me a good high jumper on the one day that it matters. And so, yeah, there was a little bit of a change from that. I changed coaches, straight after the 2023 season, and kind of brought on a new kind of perspective and new team, which really helped me with that. And I think one of the big things as well was that we put a really, really high price on performance, and a really high price on whatever we're going to say we're going to go out and do. We really stuck to that. And so, yeah, I think Glasgow was the first real evidence that shift was working.
The world indoor bronze medalist from the last staging in Belgrade in 2022 is Hamish Kerr of New Zealand.
We were really strict on what we were there to achieve, and that was to jump high. We knew that I was in shape to do a personal best, and so we wanted to really push me to go to that length. And what was actually interesting about that competition was that I actually won the competition on the height before. I won my first ever, global championship at 2:32, and yet deep down I knew that that wasn't what I was there for, and that wasn't enough. I hadn't achieved my goal of what I was there for, and so that was kind of the belief and the drive that I used to then further get that 2:36. And so I think that mindset was what I really took into last year, and then obviously going into the Olympics, there was just this massive trust and confidence in knowing that I'd done it, a number of times. I'd done it in Glasgow, I'd done it in Monaco. I knew that there were these moments where we'd sort of sat down, we'd looked at that competition on the calendar and realised that that's the one we're going to jump high at, and I did that.
Max efforts.
To be standing on the top of that podium and hearing your anthem playing, you had Mutaz Basham, who's a guy that I've looked up to since I was 14 years old, standing on that podium with me. Shelby, who I just shared it was my most amazing competition I've ever been a part of. And then furthermore, to have my friends and family 10 metres away from me in the stand, right in my peripheral vision was really, really special. We've got Val and we've got Tom Walsh and Nick Willis, who've both done so well, and then you backtrack 30, 40 years, you've got Peter Snell and all these kind of household names in New Zealand, and so to kind of look at that list and then see my name at the bottom of it is still pretty surreal. I think the New Zealanders got a really, really strong kind of connection to track and field over the years, and so I just feel like me and a couple other athletes we've got at the moment have really been able to kind of bring that back to the fore. So it's very, very special for us. 2024 gave us the confidence to know that being the best in the world is very, very achievable. And if I really put my mind to something, then I will achieve it. But I also, created all these new feelings and thoughts and just the way that I act. When I'm at home now, things are different, and who I am as a person, has changed after winning the Olympics. And so I think this year was about kind of sitting with that and just really understanding who I am and what really gets me interested about getting out of bed in the morning and coming overseas and competing. And so I genuinely feel like I'm in a place now where I'm ready to fully commit.
If you were to describe your goal for Tokyo in just one word, what would it be?
Oh, goal? Tokyo in one word. I can think of so many words. I think, honestly, personal best.
We're going to take the third one. PB.
PB. PB. National record.